Good afternoon and welcome to this webinar, Selecting the Right Tool and the Pitfalls of When You Don't, which is in celebration of this World Quality Week. So, a quick bit about this handsome devil here. Well, I think it's a great photo showing my enthusiasm and outgoing personality, and not as according to my ex-friends and family, who reckon it looks more like a severe case of trap wind. So, my name's Paul Vaughan, and as that says, I have over 35 years of experience working in numerous quality-related roles across at least 6 diverse industries. I am a fellow of the Chartered Quality Institute, as well as a fellow of the International Institute of Risk and Safety Management. And in the last 10 years, I've been on a quest to start giving back and trying to make a real difference in quality. I have in part managed to do this through my voluntary work, such as being an international quality awards judge, a CQI mentor, a regular article contributor to both the CQI Knowledge and Quality World publications, an active Audit SIG committee member, and in addition to being a self-published author, I also sit on the CQI Contents Advisory Panel. My ethos is about sensible quality, providing value-adding and effective quality, opposed to just being purely about compliance, and using persuasive anecdotal arguments on why something needs to be done and listening back. Hopefully you would have noted that there are no references to me being a master tools person, as that I am definitely not. So a legitimate question you might be thinking is, why am I delivering a presentation on quality selection? Well, last up with an idea, which was based on a slight frustration on my part of seeing all these excellent tools out there, particularly those being shared by the Quality World magazine, but with no real overall or holistic guidance as to how and when to use them. Hence the launch of the Quality Tool Selector. Now, I'll come back to the term quality later. I liken myself to one of those, it'd be a really great if type person, a thinker and not a doer. So I was both surprised and pleased that I actually managed to at least assemble the prototype for the tool selector. And out of that came the blog article for this World Quality Week. If I may briefly dwell on the Quality Tool Selector, it currently comprises of 25 tools, ranging from simple control charts to problem-solving tools. And it also identifies which of the 8 stages of the product, project or services would be the most appropriate time to apply the tool. For anyone who would like to see an in-focus version of the tool selector, you can download this via the CQI Knowledge section on the web. My intention was for one of my esteemed peers to take the concept on and develop it into an effective tool for the quality profession. And by that, providing a summary of each tool and putting in links from the tool selector to the tool, or at the very least, a reference to its best source. Unfortunately, this has yet to happen. So are there any volunteers out there? As well, at the moment, in the USA 4x100 meter relay team. And one might also ask if the selecting of the right tool is synonymous with the theme quality conscience, doing the right thing. Well, yes, it is, albeit a slightly tenuous link, which I will explain. But for now, I'd like to mention a couple of my other contributions that are equally, or if not more relevant to this theme. Own Your Signature, which was published as an opinion piece late last year, reminding all of the importance and reputational consequences when you sign or verify a document or activity. It has a strong message. That is, your signature could in fact be signing someone else's life away. And in the autumn issue of the Quality World, I co-produced this article with my dear friend Billy Ranking, describing a quality dilemma of a missed inspection and again the consequences of the resulting action or non-action. Oh, and just in case there actually is an MD of a company with the same fictitious quality RS name, it was purely hypothetical, and well, there's no such thing as bad publicity, right? Now, as I alluded to earlier, I won't be going into tool specifics, but what I would like to talk about is the thought process of and the factors in selecting the right tools. Apologies for repeating the article and blog mantra, but for me, the link to doing the right things come down to the principles of the TQM tool, departmental purpose analysis, which, come to think of it, doesn't feature in the quality tool selector. So, replacing the departmental with organization, how do we know what's the right thing to do? Are we doing the right things? Are we doing the right things right? And can we do them better? Our quality tools are undoubtedly an integral part of the. In fact, in most cases, they enable the process and its output. What do I mean by that? Well, firstly, we have an input, the bit that gets consumed by the process, the output, the product of the process, the controller, and the enabler, the resource and the tools for realizing the desired output. So yes, the tool is very much integral to the process. What is a quality tool? Now, I'm actually asking you, the audience, as my research couldn't come up with an informed answer. However, there are lots of informative references to tools. For example, a device or implement, especially one held in the hand, used to carry out a particular function. Or something such as an instrument or apparatus used in performing an operation or necessary in the practice of a vocation or profession. Getting warmer, I think. I even checked ISO 9000-2015 Quality Management Systems Fundamentals and Vocabulary, where there were 2 references to tools, but again, neither preceded by the word quality. So, in the absence of a formal definition and straight out of the Paul Vaughan's take on quality, I will say any device, application or tool that is used to support and deliver the quality of all products, processes and services. It can take the form of a chart, technique or strategy that can be used to ensure that quality objectives are achieved and maintained. Well, I doubt if that would get the crystal mark seal of approval, but it's the best that I could come up with. Factors for choosing the right tool. Here, I would like to go through a number of key factors that one should consider when choosing the right quality tool. But just before I do, I would like to share my endeavours with you. So in following the most commonly used solution in the world, I thought I would find some inspiration for the presentation by Googling how many quality tools are there. And guess what? The Googleoids could only find a mere 2 billion results. Thankfully, I had my parental lock on, otherwise, well, God knows how many other tools I might have got. 2 billion though. To borrow a famous quote from Jaws, we're going to need a bigger tool selector. As you might expect, there were lots of references to the 7 basic tools. Though looking at the 19 references on the first 4 pages, not one was listing the same tools. Though to be fair, it looked like some of the tools were essentially the same, but some modern genius had decided to jazz up the name. I'll always remember one of my creative colleagues referring to an arachnid chart that looked remarkably like one of Microsoft's Spider radar charts. The tool needs to relate to your organization's business objectives and support the strategy to achieve them. From my experience, if it doesn't, it's probably because a member of the top management fell in love with the tool and all its bells and whistles when it was demoed. Plan, do, check and act. As that says, the PDCA is fundamental to what we do, whether it's planning an activity, an audit program tool or app, doing the activity, an automated go, no-go gauging, checking the activity, control charts, or acting on the results of the activity, for example, carrying out a lessons learned. It starts from the top. If you haven't got that buy-in from your top management, then it's already failed before it started. Get it costed, plan its implementation, and get it agreed. Then there's no excuse for its premature demise. Where are you in the life cycle? Because you don't want to be doing an FMEA at the commissioning stage or a customer satisfaction survey at the development stage. Are there any timescale constraints? Maybe you'll need an abridged tool. And don't forget, there's probably 2 billion of them out there to choose the right one from. Competence. Who's going to drive it? What type and level of training will you need? Internal, external? Is it costed? Measurement of the tool performance. How do you know if it is effective, yielding an improvement and or supporting the achievement of the objectives? I once worked for an organisation who had brought in a safety and communications initiative tool. We were 18 months in when the organisation was asked by the client to objectively demonstrate the effectiveness and improvement from this initiative tool. We couldn't. It's a bit like an organisation saying it's going to reduce its carbon footprint without knowing what it is in the first place. Digital technology. Well, it's happening, so embrace it. And just think, having your reporting, flagging and trending analysis all done for you. Pitfalls of choosing the wrong tool. And there's the first pitfall example. Unless it's in a Tom and Jerry cartoon, mice don't really like cheese, so we're already using the wrong tool component. And I do love that saying, to a man with a hammer, everything looks like a nail. Arguably, in my experience, the pitfalls have predominantly been when the previous factors haven't been duly considered. For example, the tool doesn't align with the organization's objectives and the output of the tool is not what the process owner or organization really wanted. So here are a few pitfall examples. So how many quality professionals have experienced the finance tool that sprouts arms and legs, ends up running goods inwards, and before you know it, you've had to change your effective non-conformance and audit process to accommodate them on the finance tool? Before you get one of the thousands of tool developers out to demonstrate their best app ever, use a departmental purpose analysis and formulate a list of what is important for your organization. It will definitely help maintain the quality focus. Driving the checklist or checklist driven. This one is probably more about using the correct tool wrongly. The tool in this case is the audit checklist, which all IRCA certified audit trainers will recommend as part of the audit planning. For me, I will tend to cover this via an audit outline plan, where I'll identify the areas that I intend to look at, the job roles that I will want to speak to, and the types of records I will be looking for to verify the process activity. There have admittedly been a few occasions where I've found myself auditing in unfamiliar territory and I have had to use a checklist. But even then, as with my outline plans, these are purely an aid memoir. In essence, they help me get to that point in the audit. I once worked for an organisation where we were required to use audit protocols, which basically comprised of a large set of closed questions that were required a yes or no answer. If it was a no, then it was a non-conformity. Now, bearing in mind that this was post ISO 9001-2000, I struggled with how we could actually make a statement on the effectiveness of the process being audited. And I will always remember the time when, having recently joined a construction company, I arranged to sit in on one of my site quality manager's internal quality audits. He was auditing the construction manager using an extremely prescriptive checklist. Halfway through the audit, the construction manager went off piste, as they normally do, and started talking about a construction quality issue that had clearly been bothering him. To my bewilderment, the site quality manager double-checked his checklist and said, "Well, we'll forget about that, as it's not in my checklist." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. From experience, I've always found it hard to persuade the process owners of the value in auditing, and here was a golden opportunity, only to be thwarted by a slave-like adherence to an audit checklist. As mentioned in my introduction, I am an active member of the CQI Audit SIG, where I've produced a number of bite-sized video reels to get people thinking about audits. The PowerPoint version of the short video I'm about to show you was very much inspired by this Not in My Checklist event, so please enjoy. So here we have a checklist, which I must say is devoid of any of Mr. Kipling's open questioning friends. Do you really? And there we go, slavishly following the checklist down that tunnel. Meanwhile, the really useful products of the audit whistle by. And the message, sometimes you need to look up from your checklist, otherwise you won't know what you could be missing. This one's close to my heart, which takes me back to my flight simulation days, where I used to visit a supplier, and we're going to call them Vendor A, to carry out an inspection of something called a flight simulator floor structure base. Comprising of a welded steel lattice construction, these bases measured approximately 8 by 5 meters in area, quite a size. Similarly, we would have to check, say, Vendor B's products, though generally at our goods inwards. The base had over 1,400 holes, 200 plus lateral dimensions, levelling, and over 400 welds to check. In summary, there were over 2,000 defect opportunities. And contrasting this with Vendor B's bar, we were looking at essentially 2 defect opportunities. Applying a P-chart attribute approach of recording 1 and above defects as a non-conformity, we would consistently show the base as 1 times defect equals 1 times non-conformity, which equals 100% vendor rating reject rate for Vendor A, and likewise for Vendor B. This obviously put Vendor A's vendor rating performance at a disadvantage. So to address this unfair comparison, we applied a U-chart approach to measure the defects against the defect opportunities, which, as you can see, helped level the playing field. Having given you a number of problems, I thought I would finish on some quality tool pointers, or in other words, some more painful lessons that I've learned on the way. What do I mean by Ishikawa's self-perpetuating fishbone? Well, if we're going to use the fishbone, then let's get our full money's worth out of it. So starting with a standard fishbone with classic calls and failure catchments, we need an effect, the problem statement. Our example here is no product identification. We then facilitate the brainstorm, capturing the causes or failure modes For example, no documented process, poor training, and wherever possible, we should start spurring off. For example, labels missing, poor adhesion. Now we're getting close to the real root cause. But are we there yet? Probably not. And this is where the self-perpetuating bit comes in. That is, we can grab this spur and we can make it the effect or the problem statement. And we keep boning down until we're happy that we have got to the real root cause. Is one tool enough? Well, probably not, especially when we're carrying out problem-solving activities like, for example, root cause analysis. It's not a single defined methodology, and according to the big wide web, there are millions of tools to choose from. And so, in most cases, we'll need to choose more than one tool. For example, a conglomeration of affinity diagrams, 5 whys, Ishikawa, Fishbone, etc. Right up there with my frustrations of just seeing commercial and health and safety risk registers is when I see issues, events that have already happened, and vague risk statements in a risk register. For example, people plus skills. What does that mean? And material prices? When carrying out problem solving, it is absolutely critical that you begin the process with a meaningful problem statement. And that goes the same here for risk management. Start right, finish right. So let's put these statements into a risk context. So people plus skills. How about not having the appropriate competence to deliver projects as a result of losing or not having the right people and skills within the business? And well, material prices. Escalation of material prices putting additional financial burden on their procurement and subsequent loss of profit. Now, we all know what the originator meant, and we can start from a much better position. Don't call it quality. Sounds like laying out 40 towers, but it does take me back to my earlier comment about naming the quality tool selector. Some people have a misguided perception about quality, particularly about the quality team. Incidentally, in showing my age, my kids actually pointed out that it is now cool to wear sliders with socks. I do my best to correct this perception via my Mythbusters. There's a quality audit Mythbuster, a non-conformance Mythbuster. But as per the comments here, there are still unconverted people out there. And well, I know I shouldn't be advocating treating these people like children, but to me, it's like feeding your little ones with bland, textureless baby food. Sometimes in order to get them to open their mouths, you need to turn it into a train. Although the choo-choo tool selector doesn't quite have the same ring. There are 2 Y's in Pareto. What am I going on about? Well, I quite often see the following represented as a Pareto chart, which just with the one Y-axis, the quantities, would probably best be described as a par chart. So let's add a second y-axis expressed in cumulative percentage and make it a Pareto. Now we're looking more like a Pareto analysis. Often though, I will see a jumbled correlation between the 2 y-axes. And to counter this, you'll need to manually make the total of occurrences, quantity of defects in this example, as the maximum quantity on your y1 axis, and the maximum y2 cumulative percentage axis as 100%. Wow, a proper Pareto chart. And although not quite an 80-20 in this case, we can clearly show that 71% of the problems can be found in 20% of the causes. Good lesson to be learned, yeah. So when I was young, fit and healthy a few years ago, I used to play football and yeah, at reasonable level, but my wife would always be perplexed as to how long the team would spend in the changing rooms after the game. Well, I would kid her that there was only one hairdryer between the team, and then we would need to put the hair gels on and so on. The reality, though, was that no one wanted to be the first one to leave the changing room, because that's when the real analysis would begin. And as an analogy, I often see this in lessons learned workshops, where people are fearful and awkward to come across as being critical to someone's face. And I guess that's why 99% of lessons learned workshops will not have the customer, or at the very least the supplier, in attendance. And yet, how many of our organizations use the word collaborative in our marketing and promotions? So get your project program managers to be brave. Invite the externally interested parties, and you never know, they might just get feedback that they wasn't already aware of.